Over the past century or so, when people have tended to write about the English church in the later Middle Ages, they have said something like, the English church was moribund, it was going downhill, it needed to be drastically reformed. Over the past 20 years or so, scholars have been reevaluating the English church in the later Middle Ages. What was going on in the later Middle Ages? If you ask someone to tell you something about the 13th or 14th century, they'll probably tell you about the Lollards. Whether they actually existed or not is actually a bit of a contentious topic. What you do get, however, is you get an English priest and theologian, John Wycliffe, who brings out a beautiful 2-volume English translation of the Bible. People will tell you, well, Wycliffe wanted the average English person to be able to read the Bible in the vernacular. This is a little bit difficult to argue for when you realize that that beautiful 2-volume version of the Bible that he brought out was completely beyond the hope of possibility of anyone, any man or woman in the street ever buying this Bible. Wycliffe's Bible was for scholars, for churchmen, for very wealthy preachers who bring out various cheaper editions of Wycliffe's English translation. These are either only parts of the Bible or they are drastically condensed forms of the Bible. Wycliffe's original translation was never condemned, but it is these later, cheaper editions that were definitely meant for the people that are in fact condemned. Now, this is still not because the authorities didn't want people reading the Bible in English. That is part of it, but that's not the primary reason. The primary reason is that the introductions to a number of these versions come with seditious introductions, calling for the overthrow of the church or for changes in the government that went far beyond any kind of religious cleansing of the church. So in 1401, the Parliament brings out a law called De Heretico Comburendo on the burning of heretics. And the king, Henry IV, goes on something of a burning spree. Now, this is not necessarily because the people who were preaching without being authorized by the church. It's not because they were preaching about the Bible in English and saying that people should read the Bible in English, but because these preachers wanted to make radical changes in civil society alongside the changes in religion. So William Sawtry, for example, was arrested. He abjured his heretical beliefs. Those heretical beliefs included the idea that Christ was not really and truly present in the Eucharist. Now, he abjured that for a time, but then he went back to preaching not only the idea that the sacrament was simply bread and simply wine, but also that particular changes should be made in government. Now, Henry IV has William Sawtry burnt. There are a spate of burnings in just around the turn of the 15th century. In 1407, Archbishop Arundel, who was a relative of Henry IV, who was on the throne at the time, brought out what were known as Arundel's Constitutions. Now, these constitutions did indeed include a teaching against reading the Bible in English. But again, much of this was around the idea that reading the Bible in English led to sedition, to civil unrest. And because England had been going through a period of extreme civil unrest since about the 1380s, Arundel was attempting, by restricting the preaching of unauthorized persons, people who were not part of the church, he was hoping to reduce the